Hi everybody, this is Alma coming to you from Long Beach, California. Today is Saturday, December 12th of the year 2020, and this will be another Stitch with me for today. So go ahead and grab your stitching, your knitting, your crochet, get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and let's spend a little bit of time together. Today's whip is one of the ones that I started back in November when I started all the things. I think I ended up starting like 7 things altogether. I had more planned than I actually had time for. I think that's why it feels like I started so many things. But anyway, this is a Winnie the Pooh pattern that I found on Etsy. The pattern itself is called Winnie Pooh, how do you spell love, I think, because that's the quote that's on the image. And I can pull up the finished product here for you to see. The Etsy, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it's called Hornswoggle, the Etsy shop. So here we are. I'll go ahead and put the link on the description box below in case it is of interest. I thought it was a really nice design, and it is going to be a gift for a friend of mine. She just recently announced that she was pregnant, and she also mentioned that the theme was going to be Winnie Pooh. So I, of course, had to go ahead and start something. So the plan is to add, like, well, here, let me just pull it back up again. Visual. I'm a visual person, so don't mind me. So the plan is to go ahead and add the baby's information, like, down here along the bottom. So I'm pretty sure that I cut the fabric so that it was plenty of room for it. But yeah, the baby's due in the summer, so hopefully I'll be able to finish it before then. The last time I did one of these that was supposed to be like a birth announcement, it ended up being a birthday present. Like the baby had already turned a year old. So hopefully this time I can do better. But yeah, I do want to welcome you all. I've noticed a spike in my subscriber count, so I do want to welcome all of anybody that's watching for the first time. I do hope that you like what you see, that you have a nice time, and that you keep coming back. I understand that Stitch with Me's aren't everybody's cup of tea, so I'm not gonna be hurt if you just choose to stick around for the updates. But yeah, I did want to go ahead and just give a shout out to anybody that's new. I do appreciate your support, and again, I hope that you stick around. So on a similar note regarding new subscribers, today I wanted to talk a little bit more about how I organize myself, and I feel like I have talked about this before, but I always get questions, and again, I guess I could technically see if there's a way to like look and check, but I just assume that anybody that asks about how I organize myself, how I determine when to stitch and how to stitch, or how much to stitch on something, I always think this is probably a new subscriber. So, and at this point, I don't have a reference. Like, I can't just be like, go check out this video, I already talked about it, because that also seems a bit rude, you know? It's like, I already talked about this, go check this out. I don't mind repeating myself. again, for the sake of the new viewers. So I hope that you guys don't mind that I talk about this again. But if anything, you know, we are drawing to the close of 2020. And I know that I think it was in my last Stitch with Me where I talked about my plans. I mean, as you know, 2021 gets closer and closer, I feel like goals get more defined and more I don't know, more solid. I don't think solid is the right word, but yeah, they're more clear. But yes, so we'll go ahead and talk about just how I stitch. And you know, if you have watched my videos, then you know that, and I always mention this, I'm part of a lot of challenge groups here on Facebook, and a vast majority of my planning has to do with those challenge groups. They've been a godsend. They really allow me to go ahead and just have variety. If it weren't for the challenge groups, I'd probably be stuck like stitching on the same 5 whips over and over until I finished them, essentially. Which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but that just means that there's plenty of other whips that don't get love. And you know, having just done my whip parade for the end of the year, I've come to realize that I have 54 whips total. So I can't, not that I can't afford to focus on 3 whips at a time, but that just means that a lot of my projects won't get touched at all. So the challenge groups do provide a great way to keep that variety going, break you out of that the tendency to just stitch on, you know, one or two things when you have so many whips going at a time. Which, again, like, if you want to have one whip going at a time, it's perfectly fine. Everybody can, you know, you do you. If you want to have 1 whip, 5 whips, 10 whips, 50 whips, 100 whips, I always say it at the end of my videos, do whatever makes you happy. For me, I like my variety. I like having a lot of things going at the same time. Again, it keeps it fun, and it allows me to participate in these challenge groups because, again, like, it sounds bad, but the more variety you have of projects, the more prompts you can choose, you know. So if a prompt asks us to stitch on something that has a dragon, you know, you can, the more would, well, I guess it all depends on your style too, but there's more chances of you being able to match a prompt. However, I also tend to try to use those challenges to meet my own goals, to get my own things done. You know, I don't just choose. I mean, yes, I let the prompt choose, so if they do ask me to stitch on, you know, something, or do 200 stitches on blue, then that's fine. But I'll go ahead and use that prompt to match one of my goals. So that's why I also like to do the long-term tasks. And sorry, I was threading my needle, that's why I was like non-active, inactive. But that's why I like to do the long-term tasks as well. For example, right now I'm working on a task for magical stitches where I have to do 5,000 stitches total. And it just so happened that around the time when I could start that task, I had 5,000 stitches to go to complete my goal for Hogwarts. So I thought, cool, I'll go ahead and do this task of 5,000 stitches so that by the time I finish it, I can go ahead and mark that goal off of reaching 80,000 stitches on Hogwarts. So it's all about finding the balance, you know, between following prompts and working on personal goals. Most of the groups that I'm a part of, like the challenge groups, offer like penalty stitch options. So if I don't feel like doing, you know, 200 stitches in blue, then I can do penalty stitches, which means that you have to stitch a little bit more to make up for the fact that you didn't do the task quote unquote properly, and just stitch on whatever I want. So say there's another whip that I want to work on that I need to meet a goal on, I can go ahead and just get that done anyway. And one thing that I have noticed, because it happened last year as well, was especially now that we're getting closer to the end of the year, I've been focusing on just like a handful of whips anyway, because I want to reach those big count goals. So Hogwarts Castle's one of them, and then my Julie Fane piece, which I can show you guys if you're not familiar, if you're, you know, one of the first time viewers, you're not too familiar with all my whips. It's one of the Heaven and Earth Designs patterns based on Julie Fane's art. She does a lot of similar pieces like this. Well, she'll have fairies, or I think she has a hummingbird somewhere in there, that are all like up against the full moon. And this one, I loved the purple tones, so that's why I chose it. But for this one, I originally wanted to reach 45,000 stitches. And mind you, I started this back in May, so I didn't even have the full year to work on it. And I said, sure, 45,000 stitches, because I wanted to get it done as soon as possible, because it will be a gift. Of course, I didn't, you know, I overreached immensely. Right now I'm barely at 13,000 stitches, so right now I'll be happy just getting to 15,000 for the end of the year, and then I'll call it good. Next year I definitely want to get a move on it. Again, it'll be a gift, so the sooner it's done the better. But that's one of my main focuses. And then another one of my focuses is my full moon pattern, because that one is going to be a model stitch. The Etsy seller asked for people to stitch her products so that she could have the actual stitching to show on the listing for Etsy, or at least I'm pretty sure that's what the intent was. So I went ahead and volunteered for it. So I think I started it back in October, so it's already been over a month or 2 months. I can count. Time is weird, guys. But yeah, that's another one that I want to have done sooner rather than later. Right now I think I'm at 40% done. I forget, but it's getting there. And I do enjoy working on it. It's just a bunch of blues. It's just all the blues for the sky. So it's an easy stitch. It's very easy to just go ahead and color complete. But yeah, another one that I'm focusing on is the Horde flag, mostly because I've just been inspired because the new World of Warcraft expansion just came out shortly before Thanksgiving, so we've been playing non-stop. So So yeah, I don't think I'll be able to finish it before the end of the year, but I'm also using it for one of the tasks again. One of the tasks for magical stitches. I think for that one I have to do 4,000 stitches and I'm barely at 1,500. So I have to get on it. I have to finish it. So yeah, this tends to happen towards the end of the year where I just kind of, that's when I really do a laser focus. I'm barely doing the weeklies because I want to get those major stitch count goals done. And as far as other challenge groups go, I try to, we call it double dipping, where you try to use the same project for different groups, like tasks and groups. But all of this is going to not change per se, but I was gonna say go out the window, but when the new year comes, you start over from scratch, right? So right now it's like as the year goes along, you know, I finish my goals, and so as I finish my goals, I go ahead and put away the whips. But then when January comes around, you know, it's a fresh start for everything, you know, new goals for all of the pieces. So it becomes a little bit harder per se to choose what to work on. And not that there's anything bad about it, but Kim Hollenbach, Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, she talked in her latest video about the Full Coverage Fanatics bingo game that they're gonna have or host next month in January. And she had the same thought I did, where she said she had a little bit of difficulty in choosing which whips to choose for the game because she had so many. The last time they hosted the bingo game, it was back in July. So at least by then, you know, we had accomplished some of the goals, so the list wasn't quite as long of whips to choose from. But now everything goes. And with 30 full coverage whips on the go, it was interesting. It was interesting to kind of pick and choose. I actually have this, so I can kind of show you guys if you don't mind. Because this is also, again, kind of double dipping, kind of trying to get as many goals accomplished as possible. So this is the bingo board for this year. So what they do is they choose the topics, and then you get to choose a whip a whip for each slot. I'm doing the counting version, so which means that for each space, each slot, you have to do 1,000 stitches. And I think from what Kim said, if I understood correctly, if you're gonna double dip, so say you do this row across, but then you also want to do this one, from what I understand, this spot right here needs to be done twice. And since I'm doing the counting version, it means that for each slot, that's what I was gonna say, for each slot, you have to do 1,000 stitches. If you don't have something to match that slot or the topic, you do penalty stitches, which for the counting version just means, I guess the counting is the only one that has the penalty stitches. You just do twice the amount, so you do 2,000. So I marked my penalty stitches with 2 stars. And again, so this you know, this is a great way to make sure that you have some variety. Like dragons, I only have the one whip with a dragon, so I think this is going to be one of the first ones I do. And I'm also going to be using Wonder Woman for another one of their events. So again, double dipping. So it's going to be 2,000 here, 2,000 there, which 4,000. And the the task that I'm doing for them is a little bit over 4,000. So again, two birds with one stone sort of thing. And this slot I kind of just left empty because at that point, like, I'll just determine which one is closest to a finish at that point. Because Haku, right now, technically Haku is the one that's closest to a finish, I think. But I am using it, oh, here, you can see the top row. I am using it for 2 slots. So I'm thinking by the time I finish those 2 slots, it's probably gonna be done. And at that point, I can just put something else down here. But yeah, again, just it's a good way to have a little bit of variety. I don't think I did repeat some, so like I put Reader's Paradise here and here, and that's because it's one of my largest pieces. So I know that I want to do more on those. Oh, I put it 3 times. Goodness, I'm gonna be doing a lot of Reader's Paradise. But yeah, so that was a great way to kind of get the mojo flowing, see what I can work on for the year or for the month, whilst trying to keep my goals in check as well. So for Wonder Woman, for example, I'm pretty sure that the goal for her is to do 10,000 stitches this year. So if I do both of those slots that I have her for, I'll have 4,000 stitches done already. And I just got a knot back here. So yeah, so I'm excited for it, to be honest. I'm really excited for the bingo. And let me see, as far as keeping track of everything, because that's another very popular question, is how I keep track of what I do. I just have a planner. I have a planner in which I can show you. I have a planner in which I keep note of what I do for each, or not each, but most of the, not most, the 2 challenge groups that I do the most, which is Magical Stitches and Enchanted Stitching. So on this side, and this is, I got this for like $4 at TJ Maxx. So it was fine. I didn't like, it wasn't too hard on the wallet, which is why I didn't mind having a stitchy planner. But on this side I put the weekly tasks, and on this side I put the monthly tasks for these 2 challenge groups. And I essentially just start ticking them off as I go along. So this is how I also know what to show in my videos. So okay, this week I worked on Haku and Frankenstein and my stacked teacups. And then yeah, what I end up doing, especially for these monthly tasks that go throughout the entire month, is I will go ahead and as I go, or as I finish them, I end up, so like I tick them off on this page. So on this page I just had those 3 left over, and that way I'm not writing the entire list over and over again. Those planners also have like a monthly page, and that's where I write down any themes, especially for full coverage fanatics, where this year they had Stitch Around the World challenge, where each month they visited, quote unquote, visited a different country. So I would write down whatever that theme for, whatever country was the theme for that month. Another question that I get in terms of organization is how I keep track of how many stitches I do. And what I used to do this year, I had an Excel spreadsheet where I would go ahead and input the daily stitches. So each column was a different whip and each row was like the day. And so I would just go ahead and input the daily stitches, which of course then translated to weekly stitches and monthly stitches. I ended up, I actually did really well for most of the year, and then somewhere in September maybe even earlier, I just stopped for whatever reason. I don't know why. I just lost the habit, and I don't know, I just didn't pick it back up, I guess. So, but then I figured, you know, again, most of the tasks, or most of the stitching does revolve around challenge groups. So I figured I didn't need to keep track of so many things. So for this year, what I've done is I have created a new spreadsheet where I have a column for the, so I have the dimensions, right? So I have a column for width and height of each pattern to get me the total. And then from that total, I have like next to that total, I guess, I have a column where I have my progress, so how many stitches I have done, and then what my goal is for 2021. And then from that, Excel calculates how many stitches I have left to do. So for one, again, just going back to Wonder Woman, to use it as an example because it's nice and easy and round numbers. I have 10,000 stitches done on Wonder Woman. For 2021, I want to do 20,000 stitches. So right now I have another 10,000 stitches to go. I also have a column of percentage done, just overall, again, just using the total amount of stitches versus what the progress is. And I really, like, the reason why I'm really happy with my new spreadsheet is because I have the choice of going by how many stitches I have left to reach a goal, or I can also just sort it by the percentage done. So that way I can balance things out between reaching goals, finishing pieces, but then also getting progress done on all of my pieces. Especially for the newer one, especially for the 2 Amy Stewarts that I just did, or that I just started in November. Actually, one of them I think I started in October. But point being is those Amy Stewarts are super big, and I know that it's going to take a lot of time to finish them. So again, even though I have a set goal for those pieces, I can always just go by percentage done. Because again, a thousand stitches on one whip isn't the same as another. Like if I were to, do 1,000 stitches on Haku, I could probably finish it. And actually maybe not 1,000. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But yeah, the spreadsheet I think is going to be very useful because it's simpler. Again, I don't have to input daily stitch count and weekly stitch count. I can still give you those numbers because I can still kind of have an idea based on the tasks that I do it for. But now I keep track of, at the end of the day, how much I need to do on which whip. So I'm excited for 2021. I'm excited to try this new method of being organized, and just getting things done, you know. Joining the Non-New Starts group was a very involved decision. It ended up being a little bit more like at first I was all for it. I remember being super excited, and then I kind of faltered for a bit. But in the end, I think I will do it. It'll be a good thing for me, especially again, having started so many whips, which I don't regret. Because again, most of the whips. So I started, for example, the little prince whip that I did by Mandarin's Designs. I started it. I put the minimum amount on it so that I can qualify for the new starts. But I won't actually work on it until I finish Bilbo, because originally that's what I wanted to do, was finish Bilbo by the end of the year. And because I can already hear the questions like, well, why didn't you make that a focus for these last couple of months? I had other plans. Again, most of the things that I'm working on right now are time sensitive, so that's why I'm focusing on those. Besides Harry Potter, Hogwarts is just because I want to reach at least 80,000 stitches, so I don't have to do too many. Which, like, again, I already have to do 40,000 stitches next year. It's plenty. And yeah, mini Midnight Stroll is a gift. This one's going to be a gift. Full Moon is going to be for the model stitching. So it's, yeah, those are all things that need to get done sooner rather than later. But again, come January, it's gonna be full, just open season on everything. I can do everything that I want. So I'll try to keep track of those as well. And yeah, another thing that I'm participating in this year, again, kind of all geared toward trying to reach goals, is WhipGo, which I participated in this year. I'm gonna go ahead and join in next year as well. It's led by Jessie Marie. Jessie Marie does stuff, and this year it was actually kind of fun. I talked to Tess of Tess Stitches here on FlossTube and Instagram, and we chose each other's whips for the WhipGo board. So I still chose the goals, so we didn't really tell each other what we needed to get done. We just chose the whips, but it was fun. It was interesting to have somebody else make that decision for me, and it was very interesting to see which ones she picked, because she ended up picking like half of the ones that I had originally, because I originally had already made up my board largely based on this year's board because some of the goals weren't met. But yeah, half of the whips that she chose ended up being ones that I had already chosen for myself. Oh, sorry. And this is when I'm trying to stitch this way, because I'm trying to avoid bumping you guys. But yeah, I do have my board ready. It's right over here. So this is what the WhipGo board looks like, in case you are new. The premise of the challenge is that Jessie's going to call out 2 numbers each month, or for each month, and that becomes your focus. Those becomes your focus whips for the month. This year I decided to go a little bit easier on myself, because what ended up happening this year, 2020, was it ended up being really hard to apply these whips to my other challenge groups or tasks. And so I think, again, somewhere around September, I ended up just not going through with it. So for this year, instead of writing like, oh, I have to do 500 stitches on this, 2,000 stitches on that, I just, the goal that I gave myself was to just use those whips for at least one of the weekly tasks for each group. So for magical stitches, for example, the tasks average between 250 to 300 stitches per task. So if I use each whip for one task per week. You can get anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200, or yeah, 1,200 stitches. And that's, you know, regular stitches. That's not even including the penalty stitches. So I think that'll be a good way to make sure that everything is still, that I can still participate in everything. And then, so, you know, two numbers per month, that's only 24. Here in the center we have a free space, so we immediately get that. You have the option of putting down a whip for that space, but if and when that space is called, there will be a third number called. That's how we get the 25. 1 month, there's 3 numbers. So I just, again, I was easy on myself and just decided to use it as a free space, which I did this year as well. But yeah, that's actually been one of my favorite things this year. Is just the anticipation of, you know, which numbers are going to be called and how I'm going to interpret it into my plans. So I really hope to be able to keep to that goal and use it for, again, because again, penalty stitches are great because that means I can just do whatever I want, essentially. So they'll get used for a task one way or another. But yeah, as far as organization goes and how I pick and choose my whips, I can't think of anything else that I could point out. Again, most of everything has to do with my challenge groups, which I understand, you know, may not be everybody's cup of tea. Particularly in my videos in Spanish, because a lot of these groups are in English. There's not that much, or there's not that many challenge groups in the Hispanic community or Spanish-speaking community, for cross stitchers at least. So I try to kind of focus on the whip itself, and then if I use it for a task, then I'll mention it, like, oh, and I just happened to use this for a task. Because again, I know that some people might not necessarily enjoy it. They don't like the competitive stitching. Not that it's competitive, but you know, counting stitches is not everybody's cup of tea. It's not, you know, unless Pattern Keeper is doing it for me, I don't like to count stitches. That's why I enjoy the enchanted stitching challenges. So it's because you can use time, so you can just base it on time. Like, you know, as we're speaking right now, I'm using this for a task where I have to stitch on this for 3 hours. Again, I don't have to worry about counting stitches. I just have to stitch on it for 3 hours. So, and for this one, for this whip, I actually got freaked out because, so there is a flaw. There is a flaw for my Excel spreadsheet. Because again, it takes the total amount of stitches, but that's based on the dimensions. So if it's a full coverage piece like the Hades and Tilt and Crafts and whatnot, it's fine because that's accurate. But for a lot of my other whips, the total stitch count isn't necessarily the same as the dimensions. It's total stitch count. Like my Horde flag, for example, I think there's only quote unquote only like 9,000 stitches on it. And so when I input, and I go by Pattern Keeper. Well, when I started this, I was going by Pattern Keeper. So when Pattern Keeper tells me that I have, you know, 3,000 stitches done, once I input that into Excel, it was telling me that I only had a third of the way done, which was nonsense, because there were, or less than a third, I should have said, less than a third. think it was like 10% or something. I forget. Point being is that that piece has a lot of blank space, and so my Excel spreadsheet doesn't count for that blank space. So for this one, that's when I had a little bit of a heart attack. Was just based on the information that I had on my spreadsheet. I tried calculating how many stitches I had to do per month in order to finish this before the baby arrived, and it was somewhere around like 6,000 stitches per month. And I was like, that's crazy. And again, I got kind of freaked out for a bit, but then I realized, oh wait, it's not accurate. It's not accurate. It's not counting all that blank space that's, you know, in the background for where the writing is. So I'm still, you know, I still wanted to get some of it done, regardless of it not being accurate, but still. That's one thing, and so what I've done is I've marked them on all those whips that aren't full coverage. I've marked them as such so that I know to not go based off the percentage according to the Excel spreadsheet. I have to actually go and I try to like go by the grids, so I'll try to just count off 10 by 10 squares as I complete them, so that way it gives me a more accurate representation of how much I've done. Because, you know, if you're doing a sampler that has so much white space, it's, you know, it's just hard to have an accurate stitch count when it comes to dimensions, at least. But yeah, once I caught that little flaw, I could account for it, especially on Pattern Keeper, because Pattern Keeper does give you the percentage. So then what I do is I'll just go ahead and get that, like take the total stitch count and then just get the percentage from that total stitch count, and that way at least the percentage will be accurate and I can have an idea of how much I've gotten done. So yeah, it's all, I guess it's just, we always keep on learning and try something, you know, something new. But yeah, that's it, I guess. I don't know what else I can talk about in terms of organization and planning and keeping track of stuff. As ever, if you guys have something that you would like me to talk about, if you guys have questions about anything, I have gotten a few people ask me how I do my gridding. I do have a video already for that specifically. It's towards, bless you, it's towards the beginning of my channel though. But yeah, if you guys have any thoughts, you can always leave a comment, send me a message via Instagram if you would like. I'm always open to suggestions, especially because, again, I feel like I've talked about some topics more than once already, and I don't want to be repetitive, because that's not, like, again, I don't mind it because I know there's new viewers, but I also don't want to be like the one note or one hit wonder. But yeah, I hope you guys have a relaxing weekend. You have a productive week. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah for all of my friends that celebrate Hanukkah. I will go ahead and record next weekend, but then the following weekend, my next stitch with me won't be until after Christmas, so happy Christmas. For all of my friends that celebrate Christmas. And yeah, as always, I hope that you find the time to do the thing that makes you happy. Until next time, guys, take care. Bye.